Hey, welcome to this video. So before I get started with what is a neuron, I just wanted to let you know one thing, that whatever slides you're going to encounter in this course, and also like all the Jupyter notebooks and everything, so all of that is available for free in a GitHub repository, and the link to that is in the description. So make sure you check it out if you need any of these materials. Although I would say that it's better that in the code along sessions you just watch me do it and then you do it. It's better that way. But if you still want to download, if you want to get all the Jupyter notebooks and everything, then you should check out that repository. So yeah, that's it. So let's get started. So what is a neuron? So in the previous couple of videos, so we have basically talked about like how a neural network looks. So in a neural network you have different layers, and then you have neurons in each of those layers, and all the neurons are basically interconnected. So the neurons in layer n-1 are connected to the neurons in layer n. So that's what entire neural network looks like. But what really happens inside a single neuron? So in this neuron 1, right, in this neuron in this layer 1, you can see that this is connected to 3 neurons in the next layer. Similarly, you see the second neuron in this layer 1, it's also connected to 3 neurons in this second layer. So what really happens inside of these single neurons? Obviously these neurons are receiving some information, right, because this is the first layer. So that means that these neurons are receiving the data directly, and then they are imposing some kind of function, or they are just running some kind of a logic, and they are transforming in that input into some output, and that output they are passing it to this subsequent neuron, and then this subsequent neuron will also impose some kind of maths on top of what it receives. Like this one receives the output of this first neuron and this second neuron, so it also imposes some kind of maths, and it also produces an output for some other neuron in the third layer, like that. So this is how it progresses, right? So what is there inside a single neuron? So when you talk about a single neuron, it's nothing but a mathematical function. So in this mathematical function you have some inputs, so x1, x2, x3, x4. So if it's a neuron in the first layer, then you can consider these to be some of the features of the data, right? x1, x2, x3 and x4, and this mathematical function is calculated on top of those 4 data points, and it produces some output, and this is the output which is fed to a neuron in the next layer. So basically, I mean, it's pretty much clear. So if it's a mathematical function, then you make any change to any of the parameters x1 to x4, then there should also be a change in the output, which is y, and then this y is fed to a neuron in the second layer, or like whatever is the next layer. So here, like you can see, like this neuron, this mathematical function is calculated, and you get a result, and that result is passed to the second, like the subsequent neuron. And it not only this, it also passes results to other neurons like this. And each of these edges that you have, right, the edges between one neuron to the other neuron where it passes the data, so all these edges have weights associated with them. So basically you can see, right, so this neuron has weight associated to this neuron over here, and the weight is w1. Similarly, for other connection, it has other weights like w2, w3, w4, like that. And when the connection between two neurons is stronger, then the value of this w1 increases. So what do I mean by the connection being stronger? So again, like as I mentioned, both of these neurons are mathematical functions. So if we observe that due to the change of output of this first neuron, if we see a lot of change in the output of the second neuron, then we say that okay, then the output of this neuron affects the output of this second neuron, and the more it affects, the greater bond they have. So in that case, the w1's value will be higher. So if you change anything in the first neuron, it changes outputs, and then there will be a drastic change in the output of this neuron as well. And yeah, that's pretty much what it is. So if you look at the computation graph of a neural network, then the nodes which you see over here, right? So these are the nodes in the computation graph. So these nodes are nothing but your neurons, and the edges that you have, these edges which pass data from one neuron to another neuron, these edges are referred to as tensors. Now, as of now, I haven't really covered tensors in PyTorch or anything like that, so you can just think that tensors are basically some kind of a data structure, I should say multi-dimensional data structure, which contains data. So again, like from one neuron to the other neuron, you need to pass data. How do you pass the data? You pass the data via tensors, and like this one neuron is connected to the second neuron via tensors. And in the previous like slide, I just showed you, right, that two neurons were connected and the edge that they had was associated with a weight. So all these edges that you see here, all these are associated with weights. So once your neural network is trained, then all these weights will have proper values, the values that it should have, so that you pass in any new data. Now these weights will be multiplied, or some other functionality will happen along with these weights, and you'll basically get the output. Now what functionality, I'll talk about it in the next video, but just know that all these edges are associated with weights, and the sole purpose of training a neural network is to find optimal value for these weights. So that is basically all there is to learn about neurons. So you basically have a neuron, which is nothing but a mathematical function. You pass in some data, it imposes that mathematical function, and it produces an output, and that output is fed to a neuron in the next layer. Now, what is this mathematical function all about? What's there inside? And that is something we are going to learn in the next video. So that's it, and I will see you in the next one.